Welcome back to Tipping Point. I'm your host, Kara McKinney. Hungary's prime minister caves to pressure from the European Union to infuse Ukraine with another 50 billion euros. That is equivalent to about 53 billion in US dollars, and that money will go toward Ukraine's public services for the next 4 years. Public services like paying for doctors, teachers, and of course for soldiers. Viktor Orban had been the lone holdout on the deal for months, until Brussels put together a blackmail operation to concoct an offer he couldn't refuse. The plan included getting EU leaders to freeze all funding to Budapest to exacerbate the country's problems with inflation and debt, unless Orban relented. Now that the EU has gotten in its way, they are trying to accuse Orban of attempting to blackmail them. Probably because of this big headline from the Financial Times earlier this week, headlined, "Hungary vows to defy EU blackmail over Ukraine funding. Brussels has considered ways to sabotage Hungarian economy unless Budapest agrees on aid for Kyiv." So perhaps as part of their damage control, these EU leaders are trying to reclaim the term blackmail. So they want us to believe that this giant and powerful bloc of nations, that they were held at the mercy of one tiny little country that they all gang up on, instead of it being the other way around. It does boggle the mind, especially when the French president, Emmanuel Macron, had the nerve to call Hungary a Kremlin-friendly country. Europe honestly has a death wish at this point. It's like no country's allowed to have national interests anymore. We all have to commit cultural and national suicide at the altar of liberal ideas. But not everyone wants to play ball. Some leaders actually take seriously their oath of office to protect their own people's best interests first and foremost. What a novel idea. Joining us now to discuss is Dr. Shay Bradley-Farrell, the president of the Counterpoint Institute. Dr. Shay, thanks for being here tonight.
Hey, Kara, how are you doing?
Great. So what do you make of this blackmail scheme against Hungary by the EU?
I would take it further than blackmail, Kara. I would say it's extortion, because blackmail implies that Hungary has done something wrong, and all the Hungarian prime minister has done is what the will of the people is. They have been very clear, the people have, that they don't want to enable an ongoing war in Ukraine. They're all for humanitarian assistance. I've been in the Ukraine refugee center in Hungary, and I know that they took in 3.5 million refugees from Ukraine, many of whom have moved to other countries now. They don't want illegal immigration in their country, another thing the EU is pushing on them, and they don't want the radical gender theory that the EU is also pushing. Also, Kara, I would really say that this was a victory for Orban, because he stood up for sovereignty of Hungary. Hungary will not have any of their funds now going towards the war. The EU members, they're welcome to do with their money whatever they want to. And the other thing is he got them to agree to put accountability measures in place where they will review the funds, where the funds are going at the end of the first and second year. I mean, imagine that. That's what I wish our government would do to find out where our money is going.
Oh, definitely. And this has been a recurrent theme. So like you said, Prime Minister Viktor Orban deserves a lot of plaudits for holding out for as long as he did, despite all the pressure being hurled at him. And he was still able to get some victories for his country as well in the midst of all this. But as you were laying out a moment ago, and the last time I had you on, we were talking about your new book, right? And about how Hungary, really, there's a message that we in the rest of the West, in the U.S., should be taking away and learning from them. So can you also, just for our audience, to catch them up to speed on how Hungary has been, kind of going at it with Brussels for really some time now?
Yes, and the big three issues that I just mentioned are also explained in my book, and why Hungary doesn't want these. Hungary is a conservative nation, the majority of them. They're a Christian nation. And what the European Union has been trying to do to them is to push the same so-called progressive woke agenda on them that the Biden administration is trying to push on us. Our ambassador over there, embarrassingly so, is very antagonistic, undiplomatic to Hungary, who is our NATO ally as well as a member of the EU.